free. You can't afford to present an erroneous text. So no common errors. Make sure of that. So for that, what we do is we repeatedly read, we rewrite, we read once again. We just say we are merciless in our editing. So there is a lot of times you have to edit your text and make sure that it is error free. Sometimes we show it to somebody who knows, okay, the grammar or anything, vocabulary, and we just take their suggestions so that what you are writing is error free. Okay, you put punctuation marks, of course, you have to use appropriately, and your syntax means the rules of grammar. You must be very specific about them. And this, you get some tips in writing from your faculty members, and follow them very closely because they are very experienced teachers you have got who can guide you very well, and they give you some tips. Make a note of all the tips. But remember one thing, of course, see, the ethical practices must be in place all the time. You can't copy someone's content and say this is your own. Okay, so that's called plagiarism. Plagiarism is uh, it's violating the intellectual property of someone else. Okay, someone has written and you have taken that verbatim and you have presented. You say this is mine. You can't claim like that. It belongs to someone else. So I want to tell you here, plagiarism means you sometimes you think that, sir, I haven't taken the same words, I have changed the words, I've written the synonyms and all that. But remember one thing, plagiarism is not all about taking the text part. It can be an idea also. Therefore, you can't take the idea of someone else from some who can say it is my own idea. No. And therefore, taking someone's content, it's not just the words, it is even the ideas. Therefore, be original, and that helps you a lot. Any original content is appreciated. Let me tell you before I begin my session, when you submit your work to a publisher, okay, if they find that you are unethical, you have taken someone's content, they can blacklist you. You never get a chance for submitting your book once again. And therefore, it's a very dangerous game you will be playing if you copy the content of someone else. With this in mind, let us go what exactly we mean by academic writing, what care we should take, what how we can take care of the parts of speech, how we can avoid the common errors, and things of that kind. Now, in this first unit, see, let me tell you about the concept of academic writing. You read a number of books or articles and you add your own experience to that, and then you give some your presentation in writing. And academic writing is all about dissemination of knowledge. And also remember, when you are writing, also remember, this is a very important point when you are adding. It is not just the facts, it is how you reflect on that, your views, your perspectives. Therefore, whenever you are writing, add your own experience. This is your experience, it's your prerogative, it is your privilege, because this is not someone else's experience. So, always when you are writing, your knowledge plus experience must reflect in that draft. I repeat my point, your knowledge, which you have gathered from different sources, and besides that, your experience, because that is your own experience. Okay, and that should be it's a blend of both knowledge plus experience, and how you have responded in that particular context makes your writing complete and comprehensive. Next one, just because it is academic writing, don't think that people who are lucid and intelligent and therefore your sentence construction can be complex. There can be a bit of complexity. Don't use words which are too simple because you want everybody to understand. Not necessary. You are writing for a set of people and they are intelligent, definitely. Therefore, make the sentence structures a bit complex in nature and formal. Don't write yep, no, yeah, and all that. Like that's all informal language. You can't even say it's okay. When you are writing okay, be careful. You write O and K, both are capital letters. When you write okay, the right way of writing okay is writing both capital letters. But remember, when you are chatting with people, we don't use capital letters. You know the reason why? When you are doing some social media chatting, if you use capital letters, I get irritated because you are shouting. I tell only one thing, why should you shout? I can understand if you tell me slowly, like, don't shout. So don't use capital letters when you are chatting. But remember, use formal language and don't try to be informal and all that. Don't say yeah, it's okay, done this. So complete sentences, complex sentences, precise. Don't drag unnecessarily. Okay, it should be precise. They say concise also, of course. It says there's a brevity important, brief, and sometimes it is described as succinct. Succinct means sufficient words. The words must be necessary and they should be sufficient. The two words are so important. वो जो लिख रहा है वहां पे वो अवश्य है, वो पर्याप्त भी है, अवश्य भी है, पर्याप्त भी है. They are necessary, they are sufficient. Because you have an objective in mind. There's a purpose. And explicitness, of course. You just be limited to the purpose explicitly. Like, okay, don't go here and there, haywire and all that, coming back and all that. And the facts you're talking about, they should be accurate. Don't tell something which you have imagined something. Only verify the facts when you're writing. When you say 60%, it is 60%. So that accuracy of your facts and figures are important. The next thing that is important is hedging. And this is a very important word. See, when you write something, there can be some risk. When you are taking a particular position, there can be risk in that position. But you should know the risk management methods. Okay, you take a stand. It fits a personal feature, no problem. But when you are writing for everybody, you should know the risk management. Sometimes you can change your position where you are limiting your risk. Hedging is a risk management policy. And take responsibility. Yes, I have written. I agree with that. I stand by it. Any day, if I have written, I stand by it. Not how people understand it. You are responsible for that. But for what you have written, you are responsible for that. So, how do you write your essay? Introduction, the topic, and what is your title actually? Like, talk about it, and you give your main body, the presentation. That's the crux of the story, the main body, and tell so what. What do you want to tell us? What is inference from that? What is your conclusion from that? What do you want us to do? How do you want to drive us for the action plan? कुछ रोड मैप हमको दे रहे हैं क्या आप आगे जाने के लिए? This is what you mean by the conclusion. And tell us what are your references, from where you have taken this content, from where you are going to make the content clear. You can't just build a story. It's a fictional one. You got to give a pep talk. I am not fascinated by that. But give me the facts. Tell me from where you have got this. It is making your content authentic. Yes, I have read. This is the official magazine. This is the authorized site. This is the website, their official website. And just give your layout, actually, the structure. So I am keen about the structure of your essay, how you have created an interest in the reader, so that in the reading that, how you can engross the reader, and how you can captivate the attention of the reader, and what is your body, what is the important point you want to tell me, and what is your conclusion on that, what is the decisions you have arrived at. And I really love to read if a good layout is given to me. So this is what exactly you should understand about the process of academic writing. It is a formal writing. Okay, it should be authentic. And whatever claims you are making, you should substantiate, justify that. And there must be adequate evidence for that. And then it also should be captivating the attention of the reader, so that people love to read what you have written. And that is what we mean by academic writing. Then we have, he says, this seems to be very simple, but let me warn you, you are an academician, particularly when you say that you are an Osmania academic. You can't afford to make a mistake. You're a master's program you're doing, and you are giving a presentation from a facade, a platform, and where you can't make a mistake. Though you can't say I'm a learner. I agree with you, you are learning. But when it comes to the simple syntax of the language, basic grammar, basic understanding of the parts of speech, there is a question for you in the test. And the words you are using, you just analyze. Okay, I have used a verb here. I have used, this is my noun. This is the preposition which is connecting them. I have used an adjective to describe my noun. I have used my adverb to talk about the verb. Okay, he's a slow driver. Driver is a noun. Slow describes, so adjective. He drives slowly. Slowly is an adverb. It tells us how he drives. Verb is described by slowly. So slowly is an adverb because it describes how he is driving. Because but you can't be a school student, someone tells no slowly, and like whenever you get ly at the end, it is an adverb. But don't remember like that. Sometimes the students ask you, what is idli? Is idli also an adverb? Idli is not an adverb, though you find ly. So don't try to generalize. You must be very, very careful. An adverb describes a verb. An adjective describes a noun. Okay, as simple as that. Prepositions are the connecting words. Generally, we call them conjunctions. They connect them. You also have sometimes, as I told you, nouns. Okay, nouns are, don't remember like a child is a naming words and all that. It's a noun. It's a thing sometimes. It is an object, it's a name, it's a person. Okay, when you use a substitute, it becomes a pronoun. He, she, it, they. These are all, like the pronouns you're using. So make sure that you read a good grammar book and get a hold on the basic understanding of this one. I have a strong impression that you're all familiar with this. There is absolutely no problem. And I have experienced that most of the students of Osmania College of Education, they're very proficient in the language, and they have come there to learn the nuances of the methodology, how it has to be delivered. But you don't have any problem with the communication. A few of you might have, but you must have overcome by now because you're doing your master's program. And certainly, when you are given a word, the question asks, what part of speech you have here, a particular word used in a sentence. So you should be able to analyze the sentence and say, okay, this is the verb, this is a noun, and certain words are used in 2-3 different forms. So you get get a hold on the academic writing and particularly the parts of speech. Why are they talking about parts of speech at this level? You know, it's very clear. The reason is very simple. These parts of speech are the building blocks of your writing. If you don't have good hold on the blocks, your structure can be weak. However good your ideas are, however wonderful you can have your vocabulary, but if you don't connect them well, and probably it can be very appalling for the reader, and it can be an awful presentation. Sometimes people get annoyed when they see something wrong with the grammar or the syntax or anything. So my point here is get a good hold on the parts of speech. You have a specific question when you write the test. You may be asked to analyze the parts of speech. My next point is this seems to be such a big, linguistic exercise. But let me tell you, these are all simple things. You've been practicing all these things. See, you have to use good syntax. Syntax is a rule book. It's about the grammar and vocabulary. Syntax is a wider canvas. We use this word syntax. It is a rule book. It's not just the grammar. It is also the picking up the appropriate words. It is also arranging something, which makes sense and all that. Whatever that makes things sensible, you have in syntax. And something which is a very important one is agreement. Agreement. See, if you start with a third person, your verb may be different. You use he plays, he reads, because you started with he. Third person singular, you put yes here. So these are agreements. So my point is you have to use the correct tense. You can't give me one sentence in the present tense and the next sentence is in because that disturbs the flow, and therefore we make sure that maintain the tense logically. You can't tell me there was a king and he will have two children, like kids or daughters. You were talking about the past tense, there was a king and he will have. What is that? So you can't suddenly jump from one tense to another tense. Though the sentences are grammatically correct in isolation, अगर सेपरेटली देखें तो दोनों सही, लेकिन अगर एक साथ है तो ये गलत है. So tense should be in the right form. Prepositions are very, very important. We normally make mistake. Can you help me? A teacher asks, a student asks the teacher, can you help me with my homework? With my homework. And that's what you should use the right preposition. Okay, can I pay by check? Can I pay by cash? So that don't say with cash. And that's a wrong preposition. So preposition is a right word. This session is from 3 p.m. till 4:30 p.m. It's not from 3 to 4:30. It's from 3 p.m. is okay, but till 4:30, not to 4:30. And therefore, the train leaves from platform number 5. From platform number 5. So these prepositions can trouble us. And therefore, when you are reading certain sentences, make sure that you identify the correct preposition and you should get familiar with that. But there can be very dangerous, see, sometimes if you use a wrong preposition, you lose the impression, of course, of the examiner. And therefore, when you're using the prepositions, I tell you honestly one thing. Take any good grammar book, take some 100 sentences, and with some gaps for prepositions, and have a good practice. And afterwards, you check whether all the prepositions are rightly placed or not. And that can be a very good exercise. And because, your position, tomorrow you're going to be lecturers in a college, and tomorrow you are going to be scholars doing some research. You're going to present the papers in conferences, and therefore appreciation. My God, this English is really good. Okay, this language is really good because he has conveyed the content and reasonably well, of course, it makes sense. And therefore, the colons, semicolons, where you have to give some long pause and all that. Okay, and apostrophe also. Do you need, when you write it's, do you have an apostrophe or don't you? See, that makes the sentence different. Unfortunately, if you use an apostrophe, gives one meaning. If you don't use an apostrophe, that gives a different meaning. And therefore, make sure that you are very specific about what you want to say. And there are sometimes some words, they are, to make sure they're all different. There is different, there is different, they are is different, and therefore read once again and make sure that you don't have any kind of confusion in using these, say, punctuation marks. Okay, appropriate vocabulary, the right word you must use. The right word you must use. And that is what we mean by picking up the right word which just fits in so well. That's what we mean by appropriate vocabulary. I just want to tell you a small story. I don't think it's out of context for that. There was a gentleman, and he wanted to pray to God and to get some boons, some vara. Okay, he prayed to God. God appeared, and God said, "What do you want?" This man said, "You give me the best liquor in the world. It's an alcohol, okay, that can put someone in a very inebriated condition, gets a toxic perhaps." And he said, "Give me the best woman in the world. Give me the best liquor and the best woman." And this fellow started dreaming about the best woman. He was thinking of all the, and God sent him into a room. He said, "You find the best woman there. Go and find your woman there." He found Mother Teresa there. This fellow was disappointed, and so therefore, what is important there is you could have used some other word. You used best woman. So eventually, God gave you Mother Teresa there. Therefore, the right word is important in a context. And don't use informal phrases, as I told you a little earlier. Okay, hi, hello, and all that can't be in your writing. Okay, and make sure that you write, in a very formal way. And any informal language, of course, you have to avoid because it's academic writing. Maybe you want to uh, write like talking to somebody in front of you. So you want to make your narration. It's very like live, but that does not mean that you're using informal language. So the language must be a formal language, but don't use informal language. Even if you want to put it in, say, specifically you want to mention it that it's only a dialogue I am repeating. Even then, of course, make sure that it is very formal. The structure also, of course, and there are certain referencing techniques when you want to mention. I have taken from this book and from this paragraph, and it was published in this year, and it's written by so and published. And you also mentioned the year it was published, because like another version which comes, probably it was completely redone, and therefore it must have been revised and all. And therefore, referencing, when you're doing, there are techniques actually. You must mention the article or the book you're using, written by so and so, published by so and so, because you have to acknowledge. I tell you, it is not your property. You have taken someone else's lines in toto. You haven't changed anything. And therefore, immediately you should think of acknowledging, because you have used a source which you have to acknowledge. And you also have to give the authenticity sake, the referencing actually. So sometimes you have to give the cross references and all that, to talk about the books, talk about the articles and all that. This is all about, the referencing is all about acknowledging, respecting the intellectual property. Tomorrow, the same problem may come to you. Many people say that Indian context, they are not bothered about the properties. I, I, I differ several times on the world platforms. I tell them, don't blame India. Of course, a few people can be okay, taking like don't giving the acknowledgements required and all that. But most of the Indians, they respect the intellectual property, particularly in our academic circles and all that. We know, we respect the source, we respect the person, and you can't put it in your book and say, oh, this is mine and all that. Okay, and there are certain things, of course, you're using the figures of speech well. Assertions are statements you are making conclusively, and sometimes you are using it metaphorically. Uh, See, sometimes there is a metaphor in that. You're trying to exaggerate to tell something emphatically. So we use figures of speech, comparisons. Okay, he has got his status, like very tall, like a mountain and all that. It doesn't mean that it's really a mountain is in the picture. Like it's a metaphorically used. Sometimes we justify whatever we write, of course, both literally and metaphorically. Literally, you are taking the words in total and exactly, and metaphorically you are writing because you want to make it. It's a figure of speech to ornate. You want to ornate, decorate, and you use, you say that allegorically, metaphorically, literally. These are all the things, of course, which the perspectives will come when you use something metaphorically. But there's something which is even more important is proofreading. Okay, and proofreading is reading. Okay, with reference somewhere, somebody types. Of course, you've written something, and you have to cross check whether exactly it is typed well. The spelling errors and the grammar and everything, of course. Proofreading is, in fact, if something you have from where original text and is copied elsewhere, of course, you have rewritten once again, you do proofreading. Okay, and sometimes you give for a teacher evaluation, and you can ask someone to go through that if it is possible. And I want to tell you one thing, something that's very interesting actually. Uh, Chambers Dictionary was made long ago. It is a standard dictionary. Don't tell me that the dictionary also must have its standard. You can't give a wrong definition. You can't give a wrong example, and you can't. No, dictionary. Everybody believes it is an authenticated one, because the meaning you are giving, of course, contextual meaning, all the meanings, situational meanings, and correct spellings there, and correct form of the verb. Even the pronunciation is given between the bars. Okay, phonetic script and all fine. A Chambers dictionary was made, prepared, and the number of words you have in the dictionary, we call them entries, main entries. Some dictionaries have lakhs of entries, and many words they come and join, and many words are dispensed. Anything like. Anyway, fine. After preparing the dictionary, they hang it in the church. Any dictionary, if it is made, they put it in the church, and with a note there. If you can find a mistake in this dictionary, for each mistake, we'll pay you something. So people come on Sundays and for their prayers, and they turn the pages and they want to find the mistakes. Not that they're interested in the book, because they can get some money if there's some mistaken. So initially there are so many mistakes. They pay, they make payments, and afterwards the errors are minimized, and they leave it for 6 months, and then they say, "Oh, now there is no need for me to pay anything to anybody." Means it is error free. It was watched by a number of people. Whosoever comes to the church on Sunday has got an opportunity of going through that and literally for money's sake or for academic interest, they turn the pages, they try to find mistakes, then they publish it. It is how you authenticate, show it to a number of people, take all their opinions, and sometimes you accept them, sometimes you don't, but let them give their ideas, opinions, sentiments, remarks, and that is what is important actually. Because you might not have seen from a different perspective. Probably your reader will tell you should have done this, you should have used a different word, you should have constructed a different sentence, you should have minimized the number of words, you could have taken a new idea other than this one, because you get so many suggestions which probably warrant you to make corrections. Is all the time, of course. And sometimes inadvertently we copy someone's text. As I told you, it's a plagiarism, and take help from people how to avoid it. Sometimes you remember something, it's not yours. When you're writing the book, the same sentence comes here. But remind you, later someone says, oh my God, this sentence appeared in some other book, some other article. Okay, how have you taken this no, as it is? And you should be very careful about the plagiarism. And therefore, evaluation is a kind of judgment. Remember that evaluation is not simply an assessment. Assessment with a judgment is evaluation. And there are certain criteria which are very, very important. Of course, if you're a prolific writer, you should be able to follow the assessment criteria. How I am going to judge your writing? How am I going to evaluate your work? Okay, that is important. Academic writing, punctuation, grammar, and flag check. It's called flag check. I want to tell you something interesting actually. Like today, we have so many softwares. If you submit a draft to me, I have software which tells that your 90% the plagiarized, 78% is not your original, and 10% you copied and all that. And like someone asked, I think Churchill, if I can recall rightly, and how is my book? Somebody asked. He said it's both good and original. Someone asked, how is my book? And his problem is both good and original. He made a very disparaging remark. He said, what is good is not original, and what is original is not good. Okay, you try to understand the irony in this one. He said, your book is both good and original. Your book is both good and original. What is good is not original. You're copied from someone else. And what is original means what you have written on your own, it's not good. And therefore, the remarks are, of course, very distracting remarks, and it can be irritating, of course, to the writer. But there is there's a fun element in that. You just have to take it and understand. It's your work is both good and original. What is good is not original, and what is original is not good. Okay, fine. So this is about the punctuation, grammar, plagiarism, and things of the kind, of course. So what is the engagement actually? How are you taught this paper? And you are asked to write an essay following all the things you've learned, the correct syntax, the grammar, your vocabulary, your formal presentations, and your structure, your layout, and whether you're using the language appropriately, then you are going to learn, particularly to write a topic of your choice. That's a little freedom you are given, and you are using the appropriate use of language items. Language items are all your parts of speech or anything, and you're using the correct language. With the help of the guidance, of course, you got from your faculty members, and you have also the peer review. Like you write something, you give it to your friend. Your friend writes something, he gives it to you, and it is like you can think you you think pay share. Okay, you both are sharing your ideas, giving your views on someone else's writing. It helps in both the ways. You learn even the review. You learn how to make suggestions to people, your perspectives you can give, and also, of course, you learn from your friend's writing. Oh my God, he has written so well. He has given the content so organized. It is put in right perspectives are there, and he has put the ideas very logically. There is an excellent conclusion. I also should write like this. So when you are reviewing that, what exactly you learn is that yes, I, 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 I can learn. I also can give my comments on that. So finalize your script, your document or script, whatever you have prepared and all that. And it's you just finalize it. And this is what you are going to learn in this course. I tell you, these are the beautiful things that you learn, when you are at university. And I tell you, this is a lifetime learning. I don't know how much of your learning will probably put you in a very comfortable position as a writer later. But I certainly tell you, this skill is going to be with you for a lifetime. And therefore, you can't take it, with lethargy and all that. You can't be relaxed. But I tell you, you have to take every bit of it very seriously, not for your examination. I tell you, this is going to be a skill which is going to be with you for a lifetime. Then this marks classification they will tell you, but I just want to underline a few things, of course. And 5 marks by the other examiner, identifying the different parts of speech. Okay, how a verb is used there, and how a noun is used, a preposition is used. You have to identify this one. Next one is your punctuation, grammar, and in your paragraph, that carries about say 10 marks. And also about the you have to write. Okay, this is a practical. Okay, and remember one thing, I don't know if you know it or not, there's no word practicals. Practical is okay. Practical comes from practicum. Okay, practical is okay, but no practicals. Manipulatives don't say manipulative. When you're teaching a subject, of course, if you're using something to explain to your students, it's a manipulative. No manipulatives. Don't say practicals anytime. It's wrong. It's a practical. Okay, well, you have one or two or many, there's no problem. It's only practical. Fine. I just want to tell you that effective writing has got some components. Correct spelling and legible handwriting. If it's a manuscript, if you are printing it, typing, it's okay. Like correct punctuation marks, of course. Even the, like you should know about, say, full stop is called a period. And when you're writing, I call it an ampersand. I don't use the symbol. I write and, A and D. I don't put the symbol there. Okay, so when I'm the proper punctuation marks and all that. So grammatical accuracy is all about following the rules of grammar. Sometimes you use a long sentence. I just forget what the subject is all about. And therefore, sometimes grammatically it is correct. You see the advertisement of Grammarly, okay, that app. So break the long sentence into small sentences. It can be readable, of course. Okay, I come here, of course, it's a clear organization of thoughts. And you be focused. Don't go here and there, haywire, come back and all that like. So you should be able to connect the dots properly. Okay, when you gather some information and all that, there are dots. And later, what makes something interesting is that connect the dots properly. Relevant, original content, you must be focused on that. And choose a format. Depending on the kind of work you're doing, of course, the format may differ. And systematically you present your ideas and tell them this is what I feel. Express your feelings, your sentiments, your views, and present in such a way that the reader loves to read it. And you just give your final draft and read it a number of times. You can correct it, rewrite it, okay, refine it, rephrase it, reorganize that. And finally, you should have the satisfaction. This is the best I can do. So when you are writing, you should have the satisfaction at the end. I've done my best. So don't just leave it, okay, without, like ornating that, putting it in the right way and all that. Like, use all the capabilities and make sure that your writing is very effective. And if you are a good proofreader, I put 3 lines. I asked you, please use a capital letter here. When you're using Almighty, God, G capital, wherever it comes. Sometimes, wherever you write I, it's a capital. Wherever you write, see, the name of something, certain things, of course, you should use a capital letter. And when, if I put this mark, I just ask you, use lowercase, don't use capital. Delete that word, I write there, delete that one. You, suppose some word is missing, I just put, yeah, here you put this word. I want you to put a comma, reverse the order. So you should know there's a spelling mistake here. There's a spelling mistake. And when capital letters are given, of course, I just strike it off and say, no, you use lowercase. Students, you need not use a capital S there. So you also should know sometimes, the words are separately given, but you should combine them. Textbook, it is a compound word. Classroom, it's only one word. Blackboard, it's only one word. Chalkboard is only one word. But if you write separately, oh my God, it's a compound word. How can they separate this? And I put my marks, and you look here carefully. This is closed space. जो बीच में एक कैरेक्टर का स्पेस है, वो जगह नहीं छोड़ना. Classroom is not class and room. Classroom is only one word. I asked you to close the space. Anyway, when I asked you to begin a new paragraph, when I feel that, oh my God, from one point he is jumping to another point, okay, let me start a new paragraph, so that is different and this is different. And they're very distinct, of course. You can easily identify. So proofreading marks you should know, so that you can tell your friends, these are the mistakes you have made. So you should be familiar with all these proofreading marks, so that you are telling them something, you are correcting there, and where you have to use a period. Sometimes you can use, yes, period, yes. See, you are telling very emphatically. There is a full stop there. Yes, full stop. But you want to tell something different. Yes, period. Yes. Means you want to tell very emphatically. You say it's a period. Okay. When you have a list of things, before the last one, that's grammatically correct. It's called an Oxford comma. So proofreading marks, you must be Oxford comma, you remove. Do a little research on that. So you have a dream that it turns into an idea, and that you refine it, it becomes a concept. Then you plan where you have to put your concept, and you take up a project. Now let me write a project, and your dream becomes a reality. Your book is ready. I want to tell all the people here, because all the students particularly, like, you can start writing a book. When you write a book, maybe it can contain 50 pages or 80 pages. And when you go somewhere, it is your visiting card. You need not tell in so many words what you are. Give the book. Give the book that you have written. It may cost, say, 50 rupees or 100 rupees or whatever it is. And I tell you, you are introducing yourself. You are telling that you are authentic. And you are telling very categorically that you mean business. Yes, it's my passion. It is my work. It's my project. It is my subject. With all the authenticity, of course, surpassing all the expectations. You just can give a book. I tell you, you need not open the mouth. Your book tells so much about your caliber. Okay, that's important actually. So turning your dream into a reality. So you have a title when you're writing an essay, and you have an introduction. Then one paragraph, some subtopics. Another paragraph, subtopics. Another paragraph, some subtopics. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. Not too many paragraphs. Don't give me 20 paragraphs. Just 4 ideas if it is an essay. But give me your conclusion. What do you want to tell me? Like, at the end of the day, I am interested in your conclusion rather than my, perspective about it. So 4 ideas, 3 ideas in different paragraphs, and they're all connected to the central theme. They're not alienated from each other. They're all connected. and give me your conclusion. Start in a very interesting way, conclude, so that I remember at the end a few sentences you have given. That's the summary. That's the gist of your book. Those are the paragraphs, and finally you connect them and say, so this is my conclusion. I really appreciate, of course, if you can follow a structure like this when you write an essay. Now, you write for readers. Don't write no, because for marks and all that, it's okay for the time being, but you are writing for your reader. Keep your reader in mind, and adaptation is the key. Means adapt your text so that it suits him. Adaptation is making it suitable. So adaptation is important. I am writing for students. I use a certain language. I am writing for scholars. Definitely my language is different. Probably my vocabulary is different. And everything probably can change. Okay, depending on my audience, depending on my readers, I just make a few accommodations so that it works well with them. It can gel with them. Then adaptation, of course, I just have explained to you about the education levels and how they think. And when you are speaking somewhere, when you're giving a presentation, you do some kind of need analysis. What is that they're expecting from me? If I come to Usmania University, if I have to address the M.Ed students, what is that they're expecting from me? I should have a fair idea of what exactly you're expecting, and therefore I can prepare my speech accordingly. And that is called a need analysis. Even as a lecturer or as a teacher, of course, you can't afford to go to the class and say one size fits all. No, one size fits all is the old method. You have to address the individual needs. Everybody whosoever is in my audience should have something to carry home. It's a take home message for each of them. Oh my God, I have learned something today. Yeah, I can start writing a book. So I have that information about the background, your likes, your dislikes, your expectations, the necessities and all that. And that's what I do. I adapt in a new environment and a new context, of course, circumstance. And I try to understand the ethos. Why am I given this topic and what should I do for this? Then, even when you are picking up the words, a huge throng of people gathered at 12 noon. Why saying huge throng of people? Say people, enough. Why 12 noon? Noon is always at 12. Why do you want to use 12? You can say noon is enough. On Easter Sunday, every Easter comes on a Sunday. Why do you want to tell me that Easter Sunday? Tell me Easter, but don't say Sunday, because every Sunday is not a Easter day, but every Easter is on Sunday. So put Easter, eliminate Sunday. To debate the controversial issue. Tell me only when the issue is controversial, you debate. Debatable itself is a controversial theme you have taken, and therefore debate the issue. And remember, I am trying to adapt to a situation where I have eliminated so many unnecessary words. I just want to write, people gathered at 12 noon. No, at noon on Easter to debate issue. See, writing simply and write simple. And these are, like the, the, the signs which you have to follow. It is, they're underlined. Make it simple. People run away if you want to write Shashi Tharoor's language. You can't write, of course. But sometimes if you want to enjoy, you do it. But when you're writing, I tell you, some of you may ask, sir, how do we write difficult words? We know them, therefore can't we use? I tell you one thing, take any word, okay, right click, you get synonyms. Use a simpler word. It's as easy as that. I repeat my point. In your Word document or even your PowerPoint slide, you take a particular word, right click on that and find an equivalent word. If you think that that word is better, replace this one. But be careful whether you have a right, that's a right choice of the word or not. Then write simply and write simple. You can easily start writing and make it simple writing. look at this for why should we write in a very simple style? Because many people they write at a too difficult level. People don't understand. Okay, because you want this book to be read by many. But if it is going to be to reflect your intellectual aura, probably you can write well. It can be a sample book. But generally, books are read by more people when it's easily comprehensible. And the writer knows the subject. When I know the subject, I play with my words. I can choose my words. I can be very selective. I can be very choosy. And the next one is the research says all the time simplification is preferred all the time as against the complex writing. But I tell you, to write simple language, it's not easy. It's very difficult. But think of that, and people love really that. And use familiar words. The antiquated mechanisms were utilized for the experimentation. Why antiquated mechanisms? You just say old machines were utilized for the experimentation, for the test. Why they're used for experimentation? Why that? For the test. Test is utilizing for experimentation. Next one is the company operations for the preceding accounting period. Why that nonsense? Say last year terminated with a substantial deficit. They got some loss last year. Enough. So the company lost so much of money last year. That's it. So you see that when you're using the familiar words, people think that that you have that. Okay, and don't use unfamiliar words. Ascertain and contradict, dissimilar, erroneous, evince. I give you some words you can understand. Like from there, ascertain is I want to make it certain, find out. Contradict, you can say deny, opposing something like dissimilar, say unlike, erroneous, it's wrong. Okay, evince, showing, evince interest, show interest, encounter. First time it's an encounter, meeting. Glutinous, it's sticky. Glue, glutinous. Gradient, you can say slow. So familiar words you have to use. Say technical words. When you're writing to people, ordinary people, don't tell that cerebral vascular accident and all that. You say stroke. Okay, stroke is a simple word. And liabilities, you say losses. Okay, stroke and how much the company owes, loss, or whatever it is, liabilities and what else. So I tell you, use non-technical words. When you have headache, I don't expect you to say a bit of cephalalgia. Cephalalgia is a headache. But I don't expect you to use, say, I have a bit of cephalalgia. So you say, I got a bit of headache and all that. Like. So my point is that headache is understood by more people than cephalalgia. That's totally meant for a medical term that is, but instead you can use that. I see when you are using a word like cadaver, I can understand if I'm a medical doctor. If you say cadaver, I can understand. Maybe probably like you see if I were a medical doctor. But instead you say a dead body, probably all will understand. I can understand two different words of dead and body. You're using that instead of saying a cadaver and all that. So that's what we mean by the technical words. I do not, for God's sake, want to tell you that you can't use technical words. Probably, if you're writing for a non-technical reader, explain that, just give the clarity. Okay, I found it a cadaver. Okay, probably in a parenthesis, you can say, parenthesis means brackets. So in parenthesis, you can say, it's a dead body. Or you can say, put comma and write dead body. Things of that kind, of course. You can use a tycoon, eminently successful business person. He's a tycoon. Okay, in the publishing industry, of course. His paper is, like a newspaper baron. He's a tycoon. It's a supreme instead of using a top ranked one and all. It's 100%. It's 100%, but instead use absolute. Absolute is better rather than saying 10% and all. But so There are two things, of course, which might look contradictory. Use non-technical words or technical words with a caution, but make sure they're attractive. In both the cases, I don't think that a tycoon is a difficult word. Okay, so it's more attractive than telling a successful business person and is popular and all that. The point here is very important. Like, verbs are the most important ones. Let's focus on them. And immediately after verbs, the second one is, of course, nouns. So verbs and nouns, you must focus on them, use appropriately, but connect them well using good grammar.
Resource person, where
Then concrete words you must use. You can't say, interest comes actually when you're using specifically, like, concrete words, they give exactness instead of, like, people understand the same thing in a different way. We call them perspectives. If a politician says, I will do it soon, you don't know what he is talking about. It can be 1 month, 1 year, or he never does it also. But if he says, I want to complete this road, okay, the CC road, say by January 2021, he is very specific about it. That is concrete. Don't tell me, sir, I will do it soon. Sir, I will write a book in the near future. I don't understand what you mean by near future. Okay, I don't understand the proximity, what you're trying to tell me, that how close. You're telling near future you want to write a book. What do you mean by near future? Is it 1 month or after completion of your course, or in the next 10 years? Doesn't make any sense for me. Like, so therefore, I can't think of obliterating all of them. And say, I want to be very specific. Use concrete words there. Okay. Then 99.44%. That's perhaps it's better than so many. Lot of people, many people, and all. Majority and in the near future, on the coming Sunday, can be corrected. Ram lost a fortune in New York. Lost a fortune means what? What did he have earlier? What does he have now? Don't tell me that he lost a fortune. Tell me specifically how much money he has lost in the business. Okay, is it 10 lakh rupees or 20 lakh rupees, or is only 1,000 rupees he lost in the business? Don't tell me lost a fortune. So be specific about it and use active voice, and instead of using a passive one, unless you are very specific about it. And we don't use passive voice generally because it's a direct approach is active voice. But don't tell that somebody has stolen a pen from my bag. Tell in a passive voice, my pen is stolen. But don't make someone as the subject, because people are looking at who is he looking at actually. Like, don't tell. Passive voice is essential there. Don't tell that someone from this class has stolen my pen. It's not euphemistic. People don't appreciate you if you say that sentence. Just tell them, my pen is misplaced. I misplaced my pen. That's even carrying the blame on you. Like, you can say, my pen is not found. My pen is not in my bag. Please check if by mistake, if it is with you, like if you have picked it up. If any of you have taken my pen, please let me know. I lost my pen. It's my pen. I lost my pen. So these are all the ways of saying euphemistically, so others don't get offended. And that should be very important when you're writing, particularly using a passive voice. Okay. And NASC will be inspected soon by the minister. Why all that? Like, a minister is going to inspect. Okay. The policy has been supported by the staff members. You can say in a passive or in active voice, that would be much better actually. And let us see that minister will inspect, and NASC staff members have supported this policy. Straight. Active voice is all the time straight. No beating around the bush and all that. Okay. And you avoid, because you don't know where the subject is. Okay. When you use a passive voice, why do we avoid that? It obscures. It takes that subject to a point of emaciation. It's not visible at all. It is not conspicuous at all. Like, I don't see the subject. by using that passive voice, of course. And unnecessarily, you're increasing the length of the sentence. So to avoid that, use active voice. And things of this kind, shift the emphasis unnecessarily from one noun to another noun or whatever it is. Like, fine. Avoid passive voice as far as possible and all that. And there are certain verbs, of course, which are camouflaged, masked. Okay. And you want to use the additional word. Application of the mixture was accomplished. Why all this nonsense? Here, applying is the verb. When you convert that verb into a noun application, the verb is camouflaged. That's the most important word. Applying mixture, they applied the mixture. What is the most important word? Applied. Oh, mixture applied. Yeah. So applied verb, you have converted that into a noun. Application of mixture. So you have to search what is the verb there. दिख रहा है नहीं मेरे को वहां पे verb, the most important one. यहाँ mask लगा दिया उसको. That's a camouflaged verb. I tell you the word camouflaged. You know, like people, like even the army people or even anybody, when they go into a forest, they wear a specific kind of dress, like which is brown and green combination. Don't think of the Naxalites and all that, like, it's okay. Some, even army people. Why do they wear a dress which has got brown and green? Because green part, it's all the leaves, color of the leaves. Brown is the soil. So they are not seen by people easily. When army person is, when they go for combing in the forest area, for unlawful activities, those who are smuggling the red sandalwood and all that, why do they wear that colored one? Because they easily, you can't identify. You can't identify a person who is, because it's a combination of soil color and the color of the leaves there. That's why they wear. So that's what to camouflage. I don't want to make my presence conspicuous and all that. And therefore, we must bring about a reconciliation of our differences. Why all that actually? We must reconcile. Bring a reconciliation is reconcile. Reconcile means, of course, reconciliation. Let us just discuss and find out and sort out the differences or whatever it is. So, sexist words are when you're using he, she, and all that. Like, it's a businessman. People are asking, why do you want to say man? Say business person. So this is talking about a male person. When you say person, cameraman, people are asking telecamera operator, camera person. So that is a neutral gender. When I'm using particularly some words, I don't want that to meant for male or female. I want that to be neutral because it works for both. I want a chairperson. That is better for me than saying a chairman, but a woman is heading that organization. A woman is I can't say she's the chairman. Though it is acceptable, I want, she's the chairperson. She's the CEO of the organization. Therefore, I avoid words which take into cognizance only either male or female. I want to avoid that. Okay, fine. And there is a comparison, there is a text and all, and short sentences, brevity of words, making the thing succinct, and these are all appreciated these days. The latest trend going by that, and short sentences, readability, and don't give a very big sentence. I have to think of, okay, where does it start, where does it go, what point I want to tell. There's so many points there, and a clear and understandable and good impression it gives that you have simplified as much as possible. And you have to ask some questions. Can I simplify it further? Can I use a better word? Can I check my grammar? Is this okay or not? And these are all the questions you have to put to yourself before you make your submission. Okay, your audience, your plan, your sources, the purpose of writing that. And there are some grammatical rules, of course, writing numbers and dangling phrases and clauses and the rewrite and all that, where you have to hyphenate that, where you have to avoid that. There are some common prefixes like, CON comes before that, PRE comes before that. So these are the common prefixes. You don't know whether you have to put self-made, self-assessment, self-realization. In some places you put a hyphen in between, at some places you don't put a hyphen in between. So you should know whether you need a hyphen there or not. So similarly, you do a lot of editing. Is it too long? Is it too long? Can I reduce the number of words? Can I eliminate? Can I make it short? All the time. Am I using some redundant words which are useless there? Some redundant phrases which are not in use now. You want to say something that's, like very attractive. You want to make it, but you just spoil the show. Any cliche you have got, of course, have you slipped any cliche and all that? Like, whether some words are active or past, some words which are very lazy, you can eliminate them. This is all about self-editing. And the number of self-editing you have got. And my question now, I take some questions. What have you learned today? I just stop my presentation. And I have given certain points for you, of course, how you can make your writing much better than what exactly you're doing now. And I don't mind taking up a few questions. Another 10 minutes, you can ask me. I take up a few questions from you and love to answer them.
Thank you very much, sir. You really, it's a very enlightened session on academic writing for our MEd thoughts. On behalf of University College of Education, I'm very grateful to you, sir. Now able to interact with our learner resource person, sir. Students, now you can unmute and students.
You can unmute yourself and ask a question in case you got time. Swaruparani ma'am, I think you can. Is she asking a question? Okay.
Are you there?
The length of a sentence.
You can interact with sir.
Chiranjeevi. Okay, please, sir, go ahead. Go ahead.
What should be the length of a sentence?
There's nothing like that, sir. Actually, they can be, ideally, it can be around eight words. Ideally, 8 words. But I tell you one thing, very interesting. If you say no, no is a sentence. It's not a word. Remember that. Okay. When you write no, Amitabh Bachchan once says, I remember, he says no it's a sentence. It doesn't need any explanation, doesn't need interpretation. It is just say a sentence. So ideally, around 6 to 8 words, no problem. But don't make it too long. And if it's your ability to divide that long sentence into 2 different parts, I really appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Next. Yes, dear trainees, now you can seek the clarification or doubts or anything you can ask sir. Hello? I think they understood very well, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And dear trainees, please be there, and we will have discussion regarding record writing on this academic writing. Sir,
thank you very much. I leave.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. On behalf of this University College of Education, we are very grateful to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Dear trainees, hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Yeah. Please, please be there. And now, just now we have completed of this orientation on the academic writing. Now, you have to write the record from the preliminaries, including your mentor certificate and declaration by self, and then acknowledgement and index. Then introduction. Start with any good saying of regarding writing. Suppose you take Francis Bacon's, like that you can start with a good saying or good proverb, good idiom like that, and then you write introduction regarding writing concept of academic writing. Also, the features of academic writing, which is very important. The all the complexity to the responsibility. From all the features, you have to write a small paragraph and just give the examples wherever it is necessary. For example, here hedgings are there. So just you put one or two, three examples for that, and then you write the parts of speech